Upon receiving Yuki's instructions, Kogali immediately went on the move. If they were going to carry out this coup, careful preparation was absolutely essential. Messengers were instantly dispatched, and within a few days, all the major players from around the world were gathered in one place. Nearly 30 of them were now at Yuki's mansion in the imperial capital, faithful agents who all swore absolute loyalty to the man. Some, like Vega, were embedded in other imperial corps and couldn't participate. The people here composed around half of Yuki's executive staff. The coup itself had been in the works for some time, and the attendees were all eagerly awaiting Yuki's speech, feeling that the time was near. They were all quite capable, climbing the ranks on their own strengths and making names for themselves in the military. Their loyalty to Emperor Lidora was non-existent from the start. Some were even excited at the concept of engineering an empire-wide revolution. There were visitors from other worlds, halflings with strange and unusual skills, superhumans subjected to cruel body enhancement experiments, and first-rate adventurers raised by Yuuki himself. There were even enslaved warriors collected by Damrata, as well as magic born under Misha's protection. What they were faithful to the most was violence, and that's exactly where the composite division shone the most. A large meeting room was open to them all, located upstairs above the grand atrium floor. Yuki came in with Kogali just as everyone took their seats. "Hey there, guys. Great to see you all here." He was all smiles, speaking in his usual cheerful tone as he greeted them. "Tomorrow, I have a meeting planned with the Demon Lord Rimuru. I'm having Misha bring over Damrata as well, so we'll discuss more details once he arrives." This instantly caused an uproar. Were we staging this coup by ourselves? The Demon Lord is too cunning and unpredictable. Are you sure we can trust him? No, wait. Aren't we at war right now? Rimuru can't just slip out of that and slink over here. Voices shouted out from across the hall. Yuki's smile just broadened. The Imperial army has been annihilated, you know. Rimuru killed all 940,000 troops who invaded the forest. That's insane. It's too fast. Calculate the travel times, and it's only been a few days since we engaged them. It was far too much for the audience to believe. Yuki quieted them down with a laugh. If we're going to overthrow the empire, we need fighting power. That's why I've decided to join forces with Rimuru. The audience began to understand Yuki's words, even if they didn't agree with them. The more intelligent among them had shifted their attention to whether this intel was reliable or not. Is this information Lady Misha brought back? Many Cerberus members were among the group, aware of Misha's presence in the military. You got it. If we hadn't allied with them beforehand, I think they would have killed Misha long ago. Lady Misha did that. Astounding. She may have done mostly undercover work, but she was also a well-known figure, a truly appropriate leader for Cerberus. Everybody in here attained their positions in life through their own efforts alone, so they knew how to assess their peers fairly. They had a lot of trust in Yuki that way. Oddly, they knew he'd never value someone inferior in ability. Well, in that case, I welcome this alliance. I'm not too happy about how you kept this to yourself until now, but I'm sure you had your reasons for it, eh, boss? Not really any major reason, but yeah. It's just that I lost to Guy, and he made me promise him something. Guy? You don't mean Guy Crimson, do you? You fought the Lord of Darkness. That's way out of line, boss. Impossible. I'm amazed you survived. Now the audience was in an uproar for another reason. Yuki quieted them down again. I'm sure you all have your opinions, but I don't have time to explain everything. For now, you're all gonna have to accept it, and I hope you'll be patient with me on this. Instead, I'd like to discuss the arrangements we'll make at tomorrow's meeting, and how we'll conduct our operations afterward. The only official forces remaining in the capital were the IAB and a force of new recruits. The top-ranking IAB personnel were a threat perhaps, but their rank and filers didn't really count as a military force. The new recruits formed a vast army, numbering a good 100,000, but they had no real skill. They were just fill-ins, not even worth considering in this coup attempt. There were also around 20,000 guards serving as police, but in terms of their equipment, they were no match for a military. The difference in gear was so vast, it'd be like a grown-up taking on a 5-year-old. At best, they could stop their coup for a short period of time. But the most powerful forces of all, the Imperial Guardians, were still at the disposal of the Emperor. The IAB has Guardians mingled in among them, too. So technically speaking, it's really only the Guardians who we need to worry about. Right, yes. I've run into them in ranking duels before, but the guys up top really do pack a punch. Oh, quit patting yourself on the back. For all we know, there are traitors like us among the Guardians, no. Could be. Me, the only thing I have faith in is power. I'm not going to swear allegiance to some emperor who swaggers around like a fancy lad all the time. Scattered laughter broke out. They had allies among the Guardians. Reaffirming that fact just now, everyone realized just how much of an advantage they had. The joke was told by a somewhat small man, known for his arrogant attitude. His name was Arius, and he was an otherworlder not summoned, but a visitor, one who made the journey by chance. So will the Demon Lord Rimuru's forces be ready for this fight tomorrow? The black-haired girl asking this question was Mai Furuki, a high school teen over in Japan, who was then summoned and picked up by Yuuki, back when he still led the Free Guild. Thanks to the support Yuuki offered, she held deep admiring trust for him. Good question. If they're bringing an army, it'll take a while no matter how fast they are. Not unless they're flying over. Hey, they ain't gonna fly into the capital, are they? Now a large muscular man was chiming in. Tornud, a former slave fighter. If he hadn't caught Damrata's attention, he might have spent his whole life toiling in the mines until he collapsed. Thrown into the army, Tornud received an education, something he took intense pride in. Despite his bulky build, he was quite an intelligent man, enough so that he had been appointed as staff officer in the composite division. Perhaps, but flight magic consumes spiritual force. That wouldn't be a problem for a demon lord, maybe, but I don't know if his rank-and-file monsters can all fly. Tornud's question was answered by Alia, a petite magic caster who also wore the heavy armor of a fighter. She was nowhere near as young as she looked. In fact, she was an apprentice of Ghidorah's, and she had also undergone body enhancement surgery, making her a unique figure in this crew. I don't mean that, Tornud countered. Whether the Empire's main force is away or not, they've got a surveillance network covering the skies above the capital. If a large army comes in from the air, they're gonna get noticed no matter how far away they land. Alia's face reddened a bit. It was a surprisingly accurate observation, and being shown up like this was a tad embarrassing. By magic caster standards, she was unusually short-tempered and too quick to speak without thinking matters over. Hey, it's important to keep an exchange of ideas going here. Analyzing things from different angles could help us see things differently, after all. Yuuki quickly interceded, guiding the chatter back to the main topic. Rimuru has contacted me through Old Man Ghidorah to say that only a small number of them will be coming tomorrow. The contact came through a Ghidorah-engineered anonymous magical call. Even if the Ayat was listening in, it was all encrypted and impossible to decipher. Ghidorah outlined the main points of it to Yuuki, and according to him, the roster they'd send tomorrow was still undecided. Rimuru was definitely coming. But who would escort him? Sounds like Rimuru's decided a show of force wouldn't work on Ludor, too. Quality over quantity, huh? I bet he'll bring nothing but his top brass over, then. Maybe about 10 or so at most, Yuuki reasoned. They're underestimating the Empire that much. Or are they making fools out of their allies? The question was lodged by a slender beauty, stretching herself out, not a question so much as just stating what was on her mind. This was Orca, a warrior, and she might have appeared a bit airheaded at first. Despite that, she was an extraordinary talent with a number of hidden skills. Wrong on both counts, Orca. Like I said, it takes a lot of time to ready a large army. Delays pop up in so many different ways. I'm sure he decided it was better to work with a small team of elites. Tornud stepped up to explain matters again. Yuuki smiled, glad to be spared the trouble. Exactly. That's why we need to work out our own direction now. If Rimuru was only bringing his best fighters, that brought up the question of who would pit themselves against him. I'm gonna ask Rimuru what he thinks at the meeting tomorrow, so we need to put our thoughts together. For example, what are we gonna do with Emperor Ludor? It might have been pretty arrogant of Yuuki to say that. Defeat wasn't even on his mind. Only victory was in his future. Discussing their treatment of the Emperor before the crew had even succeeded was a tad abnormal, after all. But no one pointed this out. Even Tornud, always ready with a verbal jab, grinned and waited for Yuuki to continue. The Dwarven Kingdom is aware of our activities as well, so the currently deployed composite division forces are free to head off to the capital, without worrying about their rear. If all they have to deal with are the imperial forces left in the capital, it'll be easy, right? It sounds that way. The Guardians are the only threat. That's right, responded Yuuki, still smiling. He knew the true threat was elsewhere, an unknown entity known simply as the Marshal. And if you thought about why Guy let Yuuki live in the first place. Why did Rimuru take action this time? He's a pacifist at heart. I figured he'd hate to attack other countries out of nowhere. Perhaps he just didn't want to have any regrets. But Yuuki felt that couldn't be the only reason. So he mentally put the pieces together, and then he saw a hint of Guy's shadow behind Rimuru as well. If that was the case, he concluded, perhaps there was a monster in the Empire that could be a worthy opponent for even Guy. Depending on how things work out, we might have to kill the Emperor, wouldn't we? Not so fast, Ares. Yeah, don't reserve the right for yourself. The crowd here was so excited now that they were openly talking about the Emperor's upcoming murder. Yuuki agreed it was too early to discuss his treatment, but he was glad to see everyone so revved up in advance. In fact, they'd be discussing Ludor's fate at the meeting tomorrow. Ghidorah was opposed to killing him, and Damrata's loyalty was still squarely aimed at the Emperor. They were both important collaborators on this, and Yuuki hated to clash with them. Plus, there was a healthy chance this monster Guy was so wary of was Ludor himself, and if so, it'd be suicidal for Yuuki to make any careless moves. Let's wait and see how this turns out, he concluded. No need to put myself in the hot seat for no good reason. I could always have Rimuru take the Emperor, too. They'd be saving strategic details for after Damrata's arrival, but Yuuki already had a draft outline ready for their approval. First, the main part of the composite division would overrun and capture the capital. Any Imperial guardians who got in the way would be taken care of by those present in this room. Yuuki expected big things from them all. They were no less capable than the guardians themselves. Maybe they couldn't take the top-ranked ones, but they still had a numerical advantage. If multiple allies swarmed on one, that should make up the difference. The big guys like Lidor and the Marshal could be left for Rimuru, considering he was kind enough to join their fight and all. That's what Rimuru was probably aiming to do anyway, so he was sure the Demon Lord would accept that. Meanwhile, no Imperial reinforcements would come from anywhere to defend the capital. Out of their 3 major armies, the armored division was destroyed by Rimuru. The rest of the composite division would join them once the trend was clear. And the magical beasts division was way up in the clouds over distant lands. Even if they found out and rushed over at full speed, it'd all be over by then. Now that the plan had progressed this far, it was all but a sure bet. Yuuki wasn't about to hurry matters, but he was sure victory was imminent. Still, he still couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that he was missing something. What could it be? Pardon my lateness, boomed a calm voice that echoed across the heated meeting hall. The moment it did, everyone shrank back, as if showered with ice-cold water. There you are, Damrata. He was finally here.